picture this. You're watching a movie and suddenly the ground explodes. Dirt flies everywhere, and this massive, writhing thing bursts through the earth like some nightmare from hell. That moment in Tremors still gives people chills 30 years later. And here's the crazy part. It almost never happened. This is the Graboid evolution in 8 elements.
Cannon, you guys watch yourselves.
Right out there, about 30. Oh man, you're not gonna...
But before we get to design and anatomy, let's start with how this monster almost didn't happen. Number 1, the creators were broke. But here's where it gets interesting. All those "we can't afford that" moments, they accidentally created horror's most beloved creature.
Fresh meat!
When you can't show the monster, you make the audience's imagination do the work. When you can't build elaborate sets, you make the desert itself terrifying. When you can't hire A-list actors, you write characters so good that Kevin Bacon thinks it'll kill his career. Tremors broke every single monster movie rule. It waits, builds tension, then reveals something that shouldn't be scary, but absolutely is. Most monster movies make their creatures mindless killing machines. Graboids. They learn, they adapt, they outsmart their prey. The best part? None of this was supposed to work. On paper it sounds like direct-to-video garbage. In reality, it became the gold standard for how to make something terrifying without breaking the bank. So how did a creature that looks like it crawled out of a biology textbook become one of horror's most iconic monsters? How did budget limitations create something that big-budget movies still can't match? You're about to find out exactly how creative problem-solving beats expensive solutions every single time. Number 2, when the Tremors team sat down to design their monster, they did something revolutionary. They threw out every monster movie playbook ever written. No claws that could rip through steel, no rows of razor-sharp teeth, no glowing eyes or menacing roar. Instead, they created something that sounds ridiculous on paper, a 30-foot earthworm from hell. The breakthrough came when they realized the creature didn't need to look scary. It needed to feel terrifying. Think about it. What's scarier? A monster you can see coming, or something that could be anywhere beneath your feet right now? The decision to keep Graboids invisible underground for most of the film wasn't just budget smart, it was genius. But here's where the design gets really clever. They had one major concern. How do you make a giant worm scary without it looking, well, inappropriate? The phallic design issue was real, and they solved it with brilliant visual tricks. First, they gave it that armored beak-like head that opens into a flower-shaped mouth. Suddenly it's not suggestive. It's alien and disturbing. Then came the tentacles. 3 serpentine tongues that shoot out 10 feet with their own mouths and teeth. This solved multiple problems at once. It gave the creature a way to grab prey from a distance. It created that iconic misdirection, where audiences initially think the tentacles are the actual monsters. And it made something that should look silly absolutely nightmare-inducing instead. The creators understood something most monster designers miss, that the most terrifying monsters are defined by their behavior and the tension they create, not just their appearance. Number 3, so what exactly are these things? According to Tremors lore, Graboids are ancient, like seriously ancient. We're talking pre-Cambrian era, which means these monsters were around when the Earth was basically a rock with some slime on it. Cave paintings in Tremors 5 show them alongside early humans, but fossil evidence suggests they go back way further. These things coexisted with dinosaurs and somehow managed to avoid extinction when everything else got wiped out. Here's what makes that survival story believable. They're incredibly adaptable. The standard American Graboid measures about 30 feet long and 6 feet wide, with this semi-rigid internal structure that's basically nature's version of flexible armor. They don't have a full skeleton like we do, but there's definitely something solid in there because you can't move through dirt and rock without some serious internal support. The hunting system is what makes them truly terrifying. No eyes, no nose, no traditional senses at all. Instead, they've evolved to hunt through seismic vibrations. Every footstep, every heartbeat. Every tiny movement on the surface sends signals down through the earth. They can track you from hundreds of feet away, just by feeling the ground shake when you walk. But the real nightmare fuel, those 3 serpentine tentacles. Each one has a 10-foot reach and its own mouth with rows of hooked teeth. They're basically independent hunting machines that can taste, grab, and drag prey down into the main body. When the tentacles first burst out of the ground in the original movie, audiences had no idea what they were looking at. The misdirection was perfect. Everyone thought those were the actual monsters. Now here's where it gets really interesting. There isn't just one type of Graboid. The American species we see in most of the movies is actually just one variant. The African Graboids are longer, slimmer, and way more aggressive. They can secrete formic acid to dissolve rock, which means hiding on high ground won't save you. Their tentacles can even detach from the main body and hunt independently, moving faster and climbing surfaces the main creature can't reach. Arctic Graboids adapt to frozen conditions, moving through thin ice sheets underneath the surface. The oceanic variants from Shrieker Island can apparently swim between islands, which opens up terrifying possibilities about global distribution. Each species evolves specific traits for their environment, but they all share that core hunting intelligence. The life cycle is where things get really wild. Graboids aren't just one creature. They're one stage in a complete metamorphosis. They start as dirt dragons, basically baby graboids that grow into the full-size worms. When a graboid eats enough food, it dies, but the tentacles transform into shriekers, bipedal creatures that hunt in packs on the surface. Shriekers reproduce by literally dropping offspring from their mouths, and eventually they transform into ass blasters, flying creatures that lay eggs to start the whole cycle over again. Each form serves a different ecological purpose. Graboids are the underground ambush predators. Shriekers are the pack hunters that can pursue prey on the surface. Ass blasters are the aerial scouts and egg layers. It's like nature designed the perfect multi-stage killing machine. Number 4. The practical effects team at Amalgamated Dynamics faced an impossible challenge: create a believable 30-foot underground monster with basically no money. Most studios would have said it couldn't be done. Instead, they proved that creativity beats cash every single time. They built exactly one full-size Graboid puppet. One. And somehow made it feel like there were dozens of these things terrorizing the town. The secret was in what they didn't show. Most of the Graboid's presence came from its effects on the environment. Exploding dirt, collapsing buildings, cars getting dragged underground. The puppet only appeared for specific close-up shots, but the aftermath was everywhere. The tentacle sequences were pure movie magic. They created these writhing, hissing appendages that moved with genuine alien intelligence. Each tentacle was operated by multiple puppeteers working in perfect coordination, making them feel alive rather than mechanical. When those things burst out of the ground and start feeling around for prey, you believe they are actually thinking. Sound design played a huge role in selling the illusion. The team used actual seismic equipment to record underground vibrations, then mixed those with modified whale songs to create the Graboid's communication sounds. Every rumble, every underground movement had this ominous weight that made the earth itself feel threatening. Creating believable underground movement required serious ingenuity. They used compressed air systems and precisely timed explosive charges to create those iconic dirt geysers when Graboids breached the surface. The timing had to be perfect. Too early, and it looks fake. Too late, and you miss the scare. They nailed it repeatedly throughout the film. The ground-level shots where you see the dirt moving in serpentine patterns, that was achieved through a combination of buried air hoses and mechanical rigs dragged just below the surface. Simple techniques, but executed with such precision that audiences never questioned the reality of 30-foot worms swimming through solid earth. What's really impressive is how they made limitations work for them. Can't afford to show the full creature. Make the audience's imagination do the heavy lifting. Can't build elaborate monster suits. Focus on the environmental destruction and let practical effects sell the size and power. Every budget constraint became a creative opportunity, and the results still hold up against modern CGI spectacles. Number 5. Most monster movies follow a simple formula. Dumb creature chases dumb people until everyone's dead or the military shows up. Tremors said, "Forget that," and created something revolutionary. monsters that actually learn. The moment that changed everything. When the survivors try their dynamite trick a second time, they'd successfully killed one Graboid by using a pipe bomb as bait, timing the explosion perfectly as the creature swallowed it. Classic monster movie logic says this should work forever. But when they attempt the same strategy on the second Graboid, something incredible happens. It spits the dynamite back out before it explodes. Think about what this means. The Graboid didn't just react instinctively. It processed information, recognized a threat pattern, and adapted its behavior accordingly. In that single moment, Tremors established that its monsters weren't mindless killing machines. They were intelligent predators capable of learning from experience. This created an entirely new dynamic. Instead of the usual run and scream approach, characters had to actually think strategically. Every plan they developed, every trap they set, every escape route they chose had to account for the fact that the Graboids would remember and counter-adapt. It became a genuine chess match between human ingenuity and monster intelligence. The pacing was completely backwards from the traditional creature features. Most monster movies spend the first hour building mystery, reveal the creature, then devolve into mindless chase sequences. Tremors reveals its monsters relatively early, then spends the rest of the film exploring the tactical implications. What do you do when your enemy learns from every encounter? This approach created incredible tension, because every small victory came with a cost. Sure, you figured out how to kill one Graboid, but now the others know your strategy won't work twice. The learning curve worked both ways. Humans got smarter about fighting Graboids, but Graboids got smarter about hunting humans. The comedy-horror balance was perfect because it came from character reactions, not situational mockery. The movie never made fun of its own premise. Characters took the threat seriously, which made their wisecracks and panic feel genuine rather than forced. When Burt Gummer emerges from his bunker with enough firepower to level a city block, it's funny because it's exactly what that character would do, not because the movie is winking at the audience. What really set Tremors apart was its respect for audience intelligence. The film trusted viewers to understand tactical thinking, to appreciate the strategic cat-and-mouse game developing between predator and prey. It didn't need to spell out every plot point or dumb down the monster encounters. Smart monsters required smart storytelling, and smart storytelling created smart entertainment. Number 6. Tremors shouldn't work. A monster movie set in the Nevada desert with Western genre elements and a siege format that traps everyone in one location. On paper, it sounds like someone threw 3 different movie concepts into a blender and hoped for the best. But that genre blending created something unique. The Western elements weren't just window dressing, they captured that genuine frontier siege mentality, where a small group of isolated people had to rely on their wits and whatever resources they could scrounge up. No cavalry was coming, no military backup, just regular folks facing an impossible threat with whatever they had lying around. Kevin Bacon famously thought this movie would kill his career. He'd just come off major Hollywood productions, and here he was making a monster movie about giant worms in the middle of nowhere with a tiny budget. He couldn't have been more wrong about how audiences would respond. The siege format forced something most monster movies avoid: actual strategic thinking. When you can't run away, when you can't call for help, when the enemy controls the ground itself, you have to get creative. Every scene became a problem-solving exercise. How do you get from point A to point B when the ground might explode under your feet? How do you fight something you can't see coming? This constraint created multiple audience entry points. Horror fans got genuine scares and innovative creature design. Action fans got clever problem-solving and explosive set pieces. Comedy fans got character-driven humor that never mocked the central premise. Western fans got that classic frontier survival story. Each element reinforced the others instead of competing for attention. The success opened doors for future horror comedies by proving you could take an absurd premise seriously without being pretentious about it. Films like Shaun of the Dead, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and The Cabin in the Woods all learned from Tremors' approach. Respect your genre conventions while finding fresh ways to execute them. Most importantly, Tremors proved that creative problem-solving could beat big budgets and established formulas. It wasn't trying to be the biggest, loudest, or most expensive monster movie ever made. It just wanted to be the smartest, and that made all the difference. Number 7. Here's where Tremors gets really impressive. Most horror franchises turn into cash grabs after the first sequel. Think about it. Friday the 13th became a joke. Nightmare on Elm Street got ridiculous. Halloween kept resurrecting Michael Myers for increasingly stupid reasons. But Tremors, 7 movies in, and they never once felt cheap or cynical. The sequels maintained genuine respect for their audience by constantly evolving the threat. Tremors 2 introduced the Shrieker stage, showing us what happens when Graboids transform into pack-hunting surface predators. Tremors 3 brought in ass blasters, completing the life cycle with flying creatures that could attack from above. Each new form created fresh tactical challenges while building on established lore. The geographic expansion made perfect sense too. African Graboids in Tremors 5 weren't just palette swaps, they had genuinely different hunting behaviours and physical capabilities. Arctic variants that could move through ice, oceanic species that could swim between islands. Each environment demanded evolutionary adaptations that felt scientifically plausible rather than randomly invented. But the real franchise genius was Michael Gross as Burt Gummer. What started as comic relief, the paranoid survivalist with way too many guns, gradually became the emotional heart of the entire series. Gross embraced the role completely, turning Burt from a one-note joke into a fully realised character with genuine growth and vulnerability. Over 30 years, we watched Burt evolve from the guy who's prepared for everything to someone dealing with genuine PTSD from decades of monster hunting. The later films showed him aging, struggling with the physical demands of Graboid fighting, but too stubborn and too invested to quit. Gross brought real pathos to what could have been a cartoonish character. The direct-to-video sequels proved something important about filmmaking. Budget doesn't determine quality, creativity does. These weren't theatrical releases with massive marketing campaigns. They were made for cable TV and home video, but they maintained the same practical effects philosophy, character-driven storytelling, and respect for internal logic that made the original work. Even when the series finally embraced CGI in later entries, it never felt like a betrayal of the practical effects legacy. The digital Graboids moved with the same weight and presence as the original puppets. The filmmakers understood that the technology was just a tool. The real magic was in the creative problem-solving and character development. What's remarkable is how the franchise maintained its core identity while constantly expanding its scope. New species, new locations, new characters, but always the same fundamental approach: smart monsters versus smart humans, practical solutions to impossible problems, and genuine respect for the audience's intelligence. The series proved that you could build a sustainable horror franchise without relying on slasher movie formulas or supernatural explanations that get more convoluted with each sequel. Graboids remained grounded in biological plausibility even as they evolved new capabilities. The rules stayed consistent, which meant the creative challenge was always finding new ways to work within those established parameters. Number 8. The Graboids' influence on modern monster movies is everywhere once you start looking for it. The Descent's crawlers hunt through sound and movement in confined spaces. Cloverfield keeps its monster mostly hidden while showing the destruction it causes. A Quiet Place builds its entire premise around creatures that hunt through vibrations and sound. That practical effects philosophy is having a major renaissance. After decades of CGI overkill, audiences are craving the tactile reality that made Tremors work. Films like the Thing prequel failed specifically because they replaced practical effects with digital ones. Modern hits like Get Out and Hereditary succeed by using practical techniques and creative camera work instead of expensive computer graphics. The Siege format appears constantly now, that mistraps people in a supermarket. 10 Cloverfield Lane uses a bunker. Bird Box forces characters to navigate without sight. Each film borrows Tremors' core insight. When you can't run away, you have to think your way out. But the real legacy isn't technical, it's philosophical. Tremors proved that creative problem-solving beats big budgets every single time. Modern micro-budget horror successes like Paranormal Activity, The Blair Witch Project, and it all follow the same principle. Limitations force innovation. Drop which Tremors movie nailed the Graboid evolution best, and let us know which movie we should cover next.